So welcome kind of back again. For me, it feels like it was, I think, 3 weeks ago that we had our last webinar. And this is the IM Campus webinar series. And we have a very, very interesting topic today. And that is, how do I build my mediation practice? I think that this is a topic that concerns all mediators all over the world, because the vast majority of countries, in the vast majority, mediation is not yet so well known and established that there are more cases than mediators. There might be some. I heard from Israel, for example, that family mediators are very, very occupied, and because this is a mandatory mediation, maybe someone is here from Israel and can confirm that or not. But I think that in most parts of the world, it is a very important skill for a mediator to market themselves and educate people also about mediation and the benefits of mediation. Because, I mean, there is some countries with compulsory mediation and court-approved mediation. We have had a webinar about that as well. But no matter where, I have rarely met a mediator who said that they put a sign on the door, analog or virtual sign, like a website, and can save themselves from clients. I don't know if you have heard that. I have not heard that so far. So that is why we are here and hear from you and learn from you, Fola, how we can build a mediation business. And just 2 sentences about the International Mediator Campus. Some of you might know, some of you already enrolled in some trainings, but we train mediators from all over the world with trainers actually from all over the world. And our training is IMI certified. And actually our next course, we have 2 courses running right now, and the next course starts in June. And then we have a little summer break and we start again then in September. And we also offer these little inputs on a regular basis, twice a month. And the topics are around mediation and ADR. For example, I think the next topic is the ethic of ODR. Or also one topic is about the peace process in Northern Ireland. And the next topic is about co-mediation. So we're looking very much forward to see you again there, and you know where you can enroll on our page. You have done that before, so we don't have to show you this. If you have any questions about the training itself or the Mediator Campus itself, we can do that after this course, or you can always contact my colleague, Alexandra, and myself, of course. So now to you, Fola. Fola is a mediator, a lawyer, and a notary in Nigeria. And he's also the founder and owner of a major mediation firm in Nigeria, and is very well connected internationally, as I have already mentioned. And also he's a trainer of our IM Campus training in one module. And I'm so happy that you're here, Fola. And because you are here, you might have noticed we have this nice backgrounds, because that was Fola who showed up with this nice background. We said, okay, we want the same thing. So thank you very much. And I give the floor to you, Fola.
Okay, thank you so much, Andrea. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening from wherever you can hear me around the world. My name is Fola Alade, and I'm going to first of all start by sharing my screen. And 1 second. Stop. Okay. Please, can you confirm if you can see my screen?
Yes.
Yeah, can you? Okay, great. Okay. So my name is Fola Alade, and I'll be taking everyone on today's topic called building your mediation, your private mediation practice, the prospects and challenges. Before I start, I'm going to just briefly introduce myself. My name is Fola Alade. Apart from being a faculty facilitator and a trainer with the International Mediator Campus, I'm also the founder and the principal partner of Fortefa Partners LP. It's a bespoke mediation practice. We're basically into the business and practice of mediation as a mediators and mediation advocates. I also have another bespoke academy called the Fortefa Mediation Academy. What we basically do there is to train people on mediation. And I'm also we are very deliberate about what we do. We don't exactly train people to become mediators and mediation advocates, but we train people to train people in the business of mediation. I'm going to expound on this as we progress. I'm also a notary public and an emotional intelligence certified specialist. Now, we cannot do justice to the concept of mediation because going through the list, I'm made to understand that aside from having mediators here, we also have some people that are not mediators but are interested parties desirous to do what mediation really is all about and probably develop a career in mediation. So, really, when we talk about mediation, what is mediation? Mediation is a voluntary and a private dispute resolution process in which a trained neutral, who is usually called the mediator, helps parties to reach a negotiated settlement. Now, it's very important we start off with this as a premise, more like a foundation, and then build on it. Now, so and also it can also be said to be an opportunity to resolve a dispute without necessarily resorting to formal procedures. Now, what are the features of mediation? Now, mediation is a flexible process. Flexibility, I like to say, is also one of the cornerstones of mediation. Flexibility in the sense that there's really no clear-cut process per se. Now, unlike litigation, where if you need to file a case, there's sorry, there's a bit of a feedback from behind. Yeah. Okay. Sorry.
I think it's resolved. We're trying to
Okay.
mute everybody who is coming in and is not muted. So please make sure
Okay.
that
Yeah.
you mute yourself. Yeah.
Okay, it's a flexible process. Flexibility in the sense that there's unlike litigation where you have to file your statement of claim and statement of defense. In mediation, it's not exactly like that. Yeah, it's principally based on how the case is. You can decide to start from the applicant. You can speak to the respondent. You can decide to speak to the respondent. You can decide to have more or less like a caucus session. And another feature of mediation that is conducted confidentially. Confidentiality is one of the keys of mediation. Confidentiality, because as we progress, we would notice that it's not every case that everybody wants the world to know about. There are some certain issues that come up in a dispute that parties want to keep within the four walls of that room, and that's one of the benefits of mediation. Now, it's the mediator who is also a facilitator is a neutral person. Now, it's also very important to state this for those hearing about mediation for the first time that a mediator is not a judge; he's a facilitator. He's a neutral that actively assists parties in working through a negotiated agreement. And the parties ultimately are always in control of the decisions to settle a dispute. Now, I'm just going to basically run through all of this because that is not the basis of why we are here, but it's important to discuss this to set the tone for the topic of today. Now, like I said, a mediator really is a neutral third party who assists parties to a dispute in their negotiation towards a settlement in an independent and impartial manner. He's not a judge and he cannot pronounce punishments or sentences, but by virtue of the requisite skills that he has been taught, he uses them to help parties in reaching an amicable resolution of disputes in contention. Now, how do you become a mediator? You can become a mediator first of all by taking professional certification courses in mediation. International mediator campus also offers courses on how you can become one. You can also register as a neutral with alternative dispute resolution bodies, and you can also consider international bodies like the Standing Conference of Mediation Advocates, like CEDA, WMO. And now, one of the reasons why I'm going to really expound on this is this: you can only be a good mediator if you practice mediation. I would want you to liken mediation to driving a car. No matter the number of books you read, no matter the number of YouTube videos you watch, you can never become a good driver unless you get behind the wheels of a car. That is what mediation should be likened to. Mediation, in my opinion, I tell people mediation is like a verb. A verb is an action word. You need to do mediation to become a good mediator. So, and as we progress further, I would also expand on this. Now we're going to be looking at the psychology of mediation. Why mediation? Now, in my experience as a mediator and a trainer, I've noticed one thing, and that is the why. The why behind what you do gives you the motivation to do whatever it is you do. Now, what is your why behind going into mediation? Do you see mediation as a business, or do you see mediation as a vocation? You see, the way the mindset works is funny, because whatever you see mediation as ultimately determines the level of seriousness you give to mediation. Now, if you see mediation as a business, then of course the attributes of a business comes into play. And I think it's very important at this point to expound further on this. Mediation is a business. Now, it's by virtue of it being a business, all the attributes of a business comes into play, vis-a-vis having a structure, vis-a-vis you trying to make yourself better, being a specialist and all of that. But if you see mediation as a vocation, as a hobby, what kind of what as a retirement plan, the tendency for you to want to build a structure might not necessarily come into place, because you'll be like, okay, fine, am I not just doing this for the fun of it? And that is why your why is very, very, very important in the scheme of things. Your why is like the why is like the destination. So whatever it is you do to get to that destination is almost like it's like your journey. So that's why I always ask people, why do you want to go into mediation? Why do you want to become a mediator? Do you want to become a mediator because you want to be the best at what you do? Do you want to become a mediator because you want to change the face of dispute resolution, or you're going into mediation because you just want to pass the time? So the why is very, very, very important in the scheme of things. And of course, you can't talk about the why without also looking at your mindset, because the mindset you ascribe to a profession determines how you see it. So the question I always ask people is this here: how do you see mediation? If you see mediation as a business, then you know that there's some certain attributes of setting up a business that needs to come into play. But if you see mediation as a vocation or something to pass away time, then you might just be a bit more laid back in what you do. Now, now to the reason why we're here today: building a mediation practice. Now, we cannot talk about the viability of integrating mediation as a profit center without first of all talking about your structure, to not only to accommodate mediation, but to talk about competency. You see, competency in mediation at this level of which I'm teaching should be a given. Yes, because you see, at the end of the day, it doesn't make any sense to. I'm going to liken this to a restaurant where you tell the world that oh, I have this beautiful restaurant. You put out the banners. You set up a world class restaurant in terms of the aesthetics. Then people now come in, then they order for something to eat, and then it doesn't taste nice. It tastes bland. Then at the end of the day, everything you have tried to achieve all goes to nothing. Or better still, let's just use what I'm trying to do as an example, where I've tried to make so much publicity about the business of mediation, about being the best at what I do. Then I come in here and I start to stutter. I'm not able to express myself. I'm jittery, I'm scared, and all of that. At the end of the day, it makes nonsense of me trying to teach what I do. So competency, just like any other thing, is a given in mediation. You have to be very, very good at what you do, because being good at what you do is one thing. The business of people knowing that you're very good at what you do is another step entirely. Which is why when you notice, for those that are into motivational speaking and all of that, you have some people that teach you how to find your purpose in life. You have some speakers that teach you how to develop on your purpose in life in terms of scalability. And that is what I do. I don't teach people how to become mediators. I teach people how to make money from mediation. So in doing that, I take for granted that the competence that you're very, very good at what you do. You understand? Most times I don't teach that. I teach, okay, fine. If you're very, very good at what you do, how then can you make people know that you're very, very good at what you do? Now, it's also very important to state that mediation as a concept does not operate in a vacuum. Vacuum in the sense that you can't say that you're a mediator and just say that and not have an area of mediation that you do. It could be commercial, it could be maritime, it could be property disputes and all of that. Mediation does not exactly stand in isolation. It usually most sometimes arises out of a dispute of a particular area. So when you talk about mediation, vis-a-vis trying to set up a practice, it is very important you specialize. And that also brings me to the next topic, specialization, which I fondly call riches in niches. There are so many areas you can decide to be a specialist in as far as setting up a practice in mediation is concerned. You can decide to be a specialist in property disputes. You can decide to be a specialist in debt recovery, construction, libel, slander, to mention a few, accidents and tort. For someone like me, I am I like to focus more on corporate, commercial, and entertainment, and I'll tell you why. Um, with corporate commercial, it's easy. The way my brain works, I like to compartmentalize. Compartmentalization in the sense that, okay, fine, if any dispute should arise out of any corporate commercial, it's most times always from a contract, either express or implied. So it's easier for me to be able to trace it from somewhere and take it down there. But when it's family, it's all over the place. Before a party says he or she wants to walk out of a marriage or something like that, you would have had series of disputes. So in order to be able to identify what the problem is, you have to go deeper. So your area of specialization, more often than not, has to do with the area you're very, very, very good at. So what I always try to tell people where the business and practice of mediation is concerned, especially with specialization, is that always tilt to your area of strength, an area you're very, very, very comfortable with. Yeah, and we're now getting to an era where being a master of all trades, jack of all trades, is becoming, it's no longer the in thing, for want of a better way to put it. Specialization is the new name of the game. When people mention a particular area, you should come to mind. And I'm just going to quickly chip in this, and I got this from this book, and I would recommend everyone reads that book. It's called Zero to One by Peter Thiel. Now, what Peter Thiel talks about in that book, Zero to One, he tries to explain the notion why you should not compete, but you should either collaborate or dominate. Now, even if we look at the framework of mediation right now, we have so many people teaching, we have so many organizations teaching people on to become mediators. You have so many people talking about mediation. Now, I have decided not to teach people to become mediators, but to teach people how to make money from mediation. So that's another branch of me. That's another branch. That's an area I've decided to focus on. That's an area I've decided to quote and unquote try to dominate and not compete with other organizations that are trying to teach people to become mediators. So it's really, really very important in the scheme of things where mediation is concerned to specialize. Specialization really is the new name of the game. Now, what are the careers that we can talk about where mediation is concerned? You can either be a mediator, and I explain who a mediator is. A mediator is basically a facilitator that resolves disputes between parties. You can be a mediation advocate. Now, a mediation advocate is a lawyer that represents his clients at mediation, Or you can even decide to have an independent mediation practice, just like what I have, more like a bespoke mediation practice where you resolve issues for people with mediation. Or you can be an 8-year consultant. I just spoke now about being an expert mediator in a certain niche. And you can also be a trainer or a facilitator. I always joke about the concept of people being a trainer or a facilitator, because the moment you decide to go into mediation, you're automatically a trainer or a facilitator, because you're constantly explaining to the parties involved what mediation is all about. A lot of times, people are just hearing about mediation for the first time. People don't even know what mediation is. So you just find yourself teaching them about mediation. And really, is that not what training really is all about? So the moment you decide to go into mediation, I tell people, the moment you're a mediator or a mediation advocate, you're automatically a trainer, because you're constantly explaining mediation to people. So it was no surprise when I decided to just go into training, because I just noticed that for every time parties came to meet me, I always had to explain mediation to them. And in explaining mediation to them, there are some certain points that you need to hammer on for them to actually embrace mediation. First of all, and I like to call, I'm going to subsume this under the benefits of mediation, but not going to look at it holistically, just vis-a-vis some of the points you can make your parties, you can use to explain to your parties on why they should embrace mediation. The first one is that, first of all, while litigation looks to find fault, mediation does not look to find faults. No, and in explaining this point further, something just came to mind now. I should have put it here, but I don't know why it skipped my mind. It's on the concept of communication. You see, when you're dealing with parties, you need to understand that it's one thing to communicate, it's another thing for parties to comprehend. Now, why I explain this in terms of what my observations about people who train, who talk about mediation, they talk about mediation from a level of abstraction. The way the parties, the way the mind of a client, or the way the mind of a party works is totally different. They have a problem. What they want is a solution. They are not concerned with the internal dynamics of what mediation is all about. It can be likened to a car. When you buy a car, you don't want anybody telling you how, when you press the start button, it sends a message to the battery and all of that. All you know is that when you press the switch button, the car starts. That is the mindset of the average party where mediation is concerned. They want to know, okay, fine, if I'm going to embrace mediation as a means of resolving disputes, what are the benefits of taking mediation over every other form of dispute resolution? So when you try to explain to them, first of all, from their pain points, and which is what I try to do here. First of all, by saying that one, mediation, first of all, does not find fault. The aim of trying of using mediation to resolve a dispute is to find a meeting point of some sort. And that's why I have this picture here saying it's your fault, which is usually how it is like with how it is like with litigation. Whereas for mediation, it's not always like that. And then again here, there's always a speedy resolution of issues in contention. Now, I'm a bit of a comic fan, and so when I try to teach, I try to make use of things that I like to use, and I'll tell you why. Now, I'm trying to communicate with people here. So if I'm going to communicate with them, I'm trying to make them understand how mediation is. So when you look at mediation and you now remember Flash, okay, fine. What does Flash remind you of? Something that is very, very fast. Ladies and gentlemen, if parties willing to settle and they're on ground, mediation can be an issue can be settled within 2 or 3 hours. I can tell you, but can you please tell me one? You can't do that with litigation. You can't do that with arbitration. So, in trying to communicate this point to the parties, the way they think in terms of three things. Number one, is this going to make me money? Is this going to make me lose money? And what time am I going to spend? in trying to have this issue resolved. So when you're explaining to the parties that, look, you know what, if we embrace mediation, there's a speedy resolution of the issues. It's a point that would make them consider mediation. Then, like I tried to explain in the 3 points I mentioned, it is usually less expensive than litigation. But I must also clear the misconception that mediation is not a poor cousin of litigation or arbitration. It is just usually less expensive. So when a party thinks of the fact that, okay, yes, I don't need to spend so much to actually have a dispute resolved, it's also a very, very good selling point, because this still also boils down to the way clients, parties think. It would interest you to know that the professional fees that parties pay to a mediator on it, for them, sometimes they consider it a loss of some sort, because they have this belief that, okay, fine, if this issue did not arise, I probably would not have to pay X amount of money for this. So when you propose a less expensive alternative to a resolution of disputes, it always helps them in making up their mind. And another thing about another beauty of mediation is the control. The fact that the control lies directly in the hands of the parties as decision makers. Now, let's not forget that before that issue came about, these parties were already speaking, maybe due to some issue that came up and a dispute coming up. Now, they have now found themselves in a position where they feel they need a lawyer. But when they understand that, okay, look, this issue came up as a result of a misunderstanding, we both can actually can actually be in control of trying to have our disputes resolved. It helps because they know ultimately that the control of having that dispute resolved lies in their hands, of course, with the help of a mediator to help them. Now, another beauty about mediation when trying to make them understand again is the fact that it presents parties with a wide range of options. You can decide to try this option. If this doesn't work, you come back to the drawing table, you try another option. If this doesn't work, you keep trying, so many options until you find one that is amenable to parties to work with. Now, this we cannot, of course, talk about the prospects of setting up a practice without looking at some of the key issues and challenges that come about. Now, 1 hour would not be enough to talk about everything. So what I'm basically trying to do is just touch touch on all the issues. Then as we proceed, when we now have an extensive course on this, I'll now go in depth into it. Now, some of the key issues and challenges, top of which number one is awareness. It would interest you to know that some people still call mediation meditation in 2021. It's funny when I talk about mediation and somebody goes like, are you talking about meditation? And I'm like, no, I'm not talking about meditation. I'm talking about mediation. So the awareness of people seeing mediation as an effective means of dispute resolution. So the fact that people are used to other means of dispute resolution is one of the issues we have. So there's a tendency. So the awareness of mediation needs to come into play. And on a lighter note, I'm also looking for that gentleman or lady that came up with that misconception about mediation not being binding. Because trust me, as you get deeper into the business of mediation, that would always come up when you have conversations with parties and they tell you that mediation is not binding. So and you ask, okay, fine, when you say mediation is not binding, how do you mean? They say it's not binding, and you can try to explain to them that whatever settlement you come up with, once it's reduced into writing, that agreement is a contract. Is a contract not binding? So I'm really curious to know where that misconceived notion of mediation not being binding came from. Then another issue that comes up in setting up a mediation practice, especially with parties, is the resistance to change. People are resistant to change. When people are used to a certain way of doing things, it's always a bit difficult trying to make them change that norm. Now, and if we look at the concept of look at litigation, there's a judge that takes a decision on what they need to do. If you look at arbitration, there's of course there's always an arbitral award that comes into play. So for the fact that parties have to sit and agree on what they both want is not a norm for them. So the resistance to change, the fact that they have to now try another option is also one of the issues that come up, and also having to convince parties that also having to convince parties to take charge and control of the dispute at hand, rather than allowing a court determine the peace and fate, is also one of the things that come up. And then you can also of course, the issue of the antagonistic nature of lawyers. This conversation always comes up because lawyers believe that mediation. So some lawyers, I'll try not to be too generalistic. Yeah, believe that, okay, fine. Mediation, they call it an alarming drop in revenue. So most times when the clients, when they are engaged by clients, some of them discourage the clients, tell them, look, why do you need to go through mediation? You have a very good case. So it's some of the challenges that come up. So this is where, as a mediator, it's important to try to explain to parties on how important mediation is vis-a-vis trying to resolve their disputes. Now, in talking about the billing methodology, it's when it comes to the issue of billing your client, you must take into consideration any of the following points in ascertaining the values to be rendered. First of all would be the fees. Your fees must be commensurate with the services rendered. Now, this has to basically do with the complexity of the case involved. If when parties come to meet you and you look at what the case is all about, you have to be careful to make sure that whatever fees you want to charge is commensurate with the services to be rendered. In some climes, there's a mediation scale of fees that mediators are bound by. In other climes, they look at the complexity of the case. Then other time, then also what would all the other some things that would also aid you again will be the time and effort that will be required or spent, novelty and difficulty of the matter, and the importance of the matter to the client. And of course, we can also look at the subject matter, the amount involved, if it's a liquidated case or an unliquidated one, and then the results to be obtained, or the contingency or certainty of the matter. So when it comes to the billing of a client, you really don't have anything that is really cast in stone. You just have to just consider the peculiarity of the case to be able to come up with the fees that will be paid. But like I said, it all depends on the jurisdiction you operate from. So where some jurisdictions determine, there's a bit of feedback. Yeah, some jurisdictions determine how the billings will be like. Now, how do you make money from mediation? You can make money from mediation, first of all, by mediating on cases. Yes, like I explained earlier on, by giving advisory services on mediation, or by actually representing a client as a mediation advocate. Now, at this point, it's also very important to explain what I've learned from my personal experience in the business and practice of mediation. When people ask me what they should do when it comes to setting up a practice in mediation, I tell them it's always best to have the three sharp edges of the same sword, if there is such a thing like that. The first is being a mediator. The second is being a mediation advocate, and the third is being a trainer. So that way, you're going to strategically position yourself, because you see, my own personal opinion, mediation is the future of dispute resolution. With COVID coming into play and all of that, times are changing. Now, I also hold this very strong conviction that the change we seek will not come from mediators, will not come from parties, will not come from mediators, will not come from lawyers, but will come from the parties, will come from the end users, will come from the clients. Because when clients come up with, when a client walks up to probably a lawyer and tells the lawyer, look, I have an issue with this person, but I want to continue doing business with him, but I also want this issue resolved. you can't suggest mediation. No, you can't suggest litigation. Or when a party comes to tell you that, okay, you know what, I have an issue with this person. Can we have this issue resolved within a week or two? What would you suggest? Or you, when you have issues where a party comes to tell you that I'm owing this commercial institution, but I really want to find a way of resolving this issue with this particular person, what do you suggest? So the change that we seek to see, I hold that strong conviction, will come from the parties. So which also brings me to a point I decided to hold in isolation: training. Training is a cash cow where mediation practice is concerned, because people want to know about mediation. People want to have an understanding of how mediation works. Now, as you would notice, now if this were to be a paid training, now we know how much we're talking about. So by virtue of even being a mediator, and like I tried to explain earlier on, where you have to talk about mediation and all of that, it more or less makes you a trainer. It gives you certain qualities of a trainer. So, which is why where training is involved, you have to invest in training. You have to develop the art of continuous learning. You take advantage of local training opportunities, and you also try to imbibe the culture of, of communicating with the intent of people comprehending. Now, because you see, the way mediation, the way the concept of communication is, sometimes people speak, they don't know whether the other party, whether people are actually comprehending what they're saying. Sometimes when people train on mediation, they train on mediation from a level of abstraction where people can't relate to mediation. And please, I need to remember that mediation is a way of life. It's what we practice day in, day out. The only difference where this is concerned, where the formal where the institutional mediation, as one of my mentors would like to call it, is out defined. Whatever it is, it will always be reduced into writing. But at the end of the day, it is a way of life. So when teaching mediation, teach mediation with the concept of making people understand. And you can only give value if you have value. Hence the reason why when teaching, why you have to equip yourself with the requisite knowledge. You read books, you talk about mediation, you eat, sleep, drink mediation. And the funny thing about it is that mastery really is repetition. When you talk about mediation, when you talk about something over and over and over again, you automatically become very, very good at it. Now, I will be looking at the concept of understanding your target audience. Now, vis-a-vis branding, marketing, and advertising. Now, remember when I was explaining to this, I alluded to the issue of communication and comprehension. You see, we have different types of generation name. We have the millennials, we have the Gen Zs, you have the Gen Alpha, and all of that. If if I'm thinking of teaching mediation to the younger ones, I won't go to Facebook. I'll go to Instagram. I'll go to LinkedIn. So it's very, very, very important when trying to when trying to market the business and practice of mediation to know the target audience you're talking about. Are you dealing with the millennials? Are you talking about the Gen Zs? Are you talking about the Gen Alpha? So where social media is involved, you need to have an idea of the particular platform you are going to be speaking to. I'm going to talk about, yeah, I'm going to go back to the next slide, but first of all, I'll have a look at this. Of course, when we look at the baby boomer generation, those are that born 1970s and all of that, a lot of them still use Facebook. Now, for the millennials like myself, I'm 40. A lot of us use Instagram, we use WhatsApp and all of that. So if I'm going to be communicating with people my age, I'll use a social media platform that I know a lot of them will be on. Then, of course, we have WhatsApp. We have the broadcast feature on WhatsApp. We have so many means. So it's really very, very important. You choose a social media platform you can
Thank you
communicate
very much.
with people with. Now, I'm going to go back to this. And there's a reason why I put this slide and I called it the new normal online dispute resolution. This is the future of justice right now. Now, we can see what happened with COVID. Now, where COVID, I was having a conversation with a friend of mine, and I told him that COVID has changed the way and manner business is being done now. Now, I'm having a conversation with over 650 people from all around the world, from the comfort of my home. You all are in comfort of your homes, probably offices and all of that, listening to me. Just last year, COVID, for some of us, COVID was just a word in the dictionary. Sorry, Zoom was just a word in the dictionary. Now we all can sit down from the comfort of our homes and work. Now people can see that you don't need to go to the office Monday to Friday. And I must quickly add this, that you see, the concept of comfort is a multi-billion dollar industry. People want to stay, people can pay millions for comfort. So the fact that when a case comes up, you can stay at home and have the issue resolved from anywhere around the world, is making mediation a more preferable means of dispute resolution. I have a friend here. I don't know whether he's here. His name is Malcolm. Malcolm is into tech and all of that. So let's assume he has a business where he really lives home. He does his business online, and a dispute arises. Now he would feel more comfortable having that dispute resolved from the comfort of his home as opposed to having to go to court. So let's remember that this is going to be the new normal. We're going to be having more of disputes being resolved online. And in rounding up, in rounding up, it's one thing it's one thing to have to say all of this. It's another thing for you to be able to visualize whatever it is you want to do. And that's why I try to explain to people who want to set up a mediation practice that look, you need to have an idea of what it is you want to do. You need to have an idea, you need to have a focal point, have the end in mind, then you can focus on the journey. Because if you don't have an idea of where you're going to, how do you want to get there? How do you want to get there? So everything starts off with an idea. I remember when I was going to set up my practice, I was very strategic and I was very, very deliberate. I made up my mind I was going to focus not on litigation, not on arbitration, but on everything and anything mediation. So in making up my mind to do that, every decision I took from when I started off has led me to where I am right now, because everything started from the mind. The fact that I knew I was going to focus on the business of mediation, the fact that I knew that I was not going to go into mainstream mediation of trying to teach people to become mediators. I also made up my mind and it's funny, when I started off first of all as a mediation advocate, because I was in active practice for over 10 years. So the transition wasn't too difficult. Because basically what I just did was, okay, fine, rather than having clients come to resolve disputes using litigation, I'll just reverse engineer and then have clients and then resolve issues using mediation. Then I just thought about it, hey, rather than just being a mediation advocate, why can't I also become a mediator? Where I can actually sit based on my knowledge and resolve disputes for parties. And I thought about it. Every time I'm mediating as a mediator or a mediation advocate, I'm always explaining the concept of mediation to people. So I might as well just add training to it. And then having three sides. So the point is that everything started off from the mind. I like to call it the idealization stage, where you conceptualize whatever it is you want to do. Now, you cannot talk about now the second one again is implementation. It's easy to read all the books, attend all the trainings and the seminars and all of that. If you don't implement, it amounts to nothing. Nothing. And this is where a lot of mediators who want to go set up the practice, this is where they always find it very difficult. A lot of times, some of them overthink issues, they overanalyze issues, then they have what is called analysis paralysis. They want it to be perfect. They want, okay, fine, if I'm going to set up a mediation practice, I need to do this, I need to do that, I need to do this, I need to strategically, and I tell them, just start from where you are. Everything eventually falls into place. Don't overanalyze issues. I remember when I was going to start, what the mindset I had was different from when I eventually started, because I just started learning things along the way. So what I try to make people understand, as far as setting up a mediation practice is concerned, is that start off from where you are. Implement whatever it is you have. You understand? If you don't implement, how will you know how good or how bad you are? How will you know? So implementation is key. And that's why I have it first of all as the ideas. When you have from the ideas, you move to the implementation stage. Then from the implementation stage, you have to remain consistent at whatever you do. Because consistency, ladies and gentlemen, is better than intensity. Always start off being consistent. Then from there, it's better to continue to do something than to start off and at the end of the day just lose steam. Just lose steam. So consistency is more important than intensity. And I think we should also have some homegrown conversations with ourselves. Now, another elephant in the room, which a lot of us also need to address again, is the issue of laziness and procrastination. You know, I have a mentorship platform where we try to teach people on the business and practice of mediation. I think we're over 180 something, and I've noticed one thing: people want to be pushed. People want to be taught what to do. People want to be motivated. And if you're going to make success out of anything, you need to be self motivated. You need to push yourself to do it because if you don't push yourself, nobody else will push you. So that's why I'm always hammering on the concept of consistency. Consistency is better than intensity. So on this note, I would pause a bit and take questions, and then we'll take it up from here. As we progress, the subsequent trainings we'll be having, I would expound more on all of this. So thank you. Alex, I think I'm done. Over to you.
I take it over, Fola. Thank you so much. That was a lot of passion in the room, and I think there was consistency, but also intensity, which I really, really liked about that. So are there any questions? We have such a huge audience. 80 people are in the room. Do you have any questions for Fola? Yeah, Detlef. Just go ahead. It's a good example. Sorry. Just switch your camera on and ask your question. Then you don't have to write it in the chat.
Yes. Fola, would it be the same rules you told us about in Germany? So I'm a beginner with the mediation business. Therefore, did you talk about your special market? Because Germany is still a virgin country in mediation, from my opinion, at the moment.
Okay, when we say virgin, compared to I'm based in Lagos, Nigeria, and I like to believe that mediation is also an evolving process here. And I don't know about how much of a virgin mediation
Oh, sorry,
is
virgin
in
means the beginner
Germany.
market. Sorry,
I know.
translated to German. Sorry.
I get you, but I understand where you're coming from. But the point is that I think the rules are really the same, if you ask me. Um, they're basically the same. You come into mediation, you try to disseminate information on what you do using the social media platforms available to you. Like what I try to advise people to do is that you first of all start off through family and friends. Let your family and friends understand and I think maybe we should even first of all try and take the concept of mediation from that level of people thinking it's that big and bring it down to day-to-day interferences, the day-to-day interactions you have with people. You understand, whereby you maybe two friends are having an issue, and you tell them, look, this issue on ground, I don't think it's something that you guys have to blow it out of proportion. Can you tell me what your problem is? Can you tell me what the problem is? And you just find a meeting point of some sort. So it's like here in Nigeria, it's also evolving. So I think, yeah, that's just it. Unless I don't think I got your question correctly.
Yeah, maybe
Yes,
I can
thank
add
you.
to that, Detlef, because I
Yes,
mean
please, Andrea.
we are from Germany and know the market quite well. I would say that everything you said, Fola, absolutely is adaptable to the German market as well, because it starts from your inner kind of, everything you said. I mean, I don't have to repeat it, but it's not about how is the situation outside, but it starts from your inside. What do I want to go? Where do I want to go? What is my focus? And I think that is the same for mediators all over the world, actually. I have nothing to add. That
And
would be specific to the German market.
yeah, and I think I must add that I like a growing market, and I'll tell you why. You see, the beauty about a growing market is that you can actually dominate. You don't have so much competition. So if you ask me to choose between a developed market, a virgin market, or a growing market, I'd rather go for a virgin market because you're coming into the space, you are dictating the tone of things, how things should be like, and then you take it off from there. It would interest you to know that I've just been in mediation for 5 years. I started off mediation in 2015, but I came in. I came in with a plan. I came in with what I wanted to do. I didn't want to compete. I wanted to stand out. So it was easy for me to do that because mediation was growing. If I had done that with arbitration, chances are I may probably not be where I am right now. So it was calculated. It was okay. Now let me also make you laugh, Andrea. I remember in 2015 when I was going to start blogging on mediation. I just typed bloggers of mediation in Africa, in Nigeria. I think we had only one or two people blogging on mediation. I was excited. I was like, yes, this is what I'm talking about. This is where I should be. And I started blogging on mediation. I made effective use of social media because it was familiar terrain for me. The fact that I could sit down from the comfort of my house, take my phone, and I'm always on my phone anyway, and just keep blogging on mediation, sending things, and all of that. And you see, what people need to understand about the superpower they have right now. The superpower they have right now is social media. The superpower they have right now is technology, the fact that they can actually stay from wherever they are and talk about something and not only reach people in Germany or Nigeria, but reach people all around the world. Andrea, how did we meet? We met on LinkedIn, right? Remember? We met on
Absolutely.
yeah, we
Yeah.
met on LinkedIn, and look at us today. We met on LinkedIn. So the rules are basically the same, if you ask me.
Are there any other questions? I saw some hands popping up. We have Wendy.
Hello, Vikram.
Hello, everybody.
Hi, Fola.
Yeah, my question is more about the idea to do mediation is clear, but I'm sort of at the part of my life now where I'm not sure if I want to go into commercial or family, and people just say, just go for both and see what happens. And I was told by a media expert that that's exactly what I should do. Start blogging and writing things about things that interest me in mediation and just see where the customers come from. Is that how? I mean, that's a little bit different from what you were saying.
Well, like I explained I think was it in the second or the third slide where I said I think I said it has to do with it has to do with what you really really want from mediation. Do you see mediation first of all as a business, or do you see it as a vocation? Now you can decide to have both of them. You can decide to see mediation as a business and see mediation as a vocation. Yeah, so but the way I like to see it, just believe you can't have two masters at the same time. I just believe you can have two masters at the same time. I'd rather this is very personal. People who know me say, Fola, it's always about the business for you. I would rather dedicate my time now to build an empire in mediation. Then once I do, I can now decide to go into vocation and all of that. But like I said, I like to compartmentalize. I have a bespoke approach to something. I go after it. Then once I feel I've been able to achieve, I can do other things. But you see, there is really no clear-cut rule where this is concerned. It all depends on who you really are. If you feel you have what it takes to manage both of them, please by all means do that. If you feel okay, fine. If you feel you want to do business and use mediation as an avenue of giving back to the society, you can also do that. Like I did a bit of volunteer mediation when I started off, but the intent really wasn't because I wanted to give back. Honestly, I just needed to sharpen my skills in mediation. And I was very aware of the fact that the more cases you handle in mediation, the better you become.
Mhm.
So that was why I did a lot. I did a lot of volunteer mediation. So really, Wendy, it all depends on who you are and what you want from the process.
Okay, thank you.
Most welcome.
Any other questions? AD.
Sorry, I'm currently as a student. It's kind of heartening for me to see the shift of dispute resolution. So for me, it's when I see people who my maximum exposure to mediations has been through competitions that happen on the international scale. So and what's been fresh for me to see is that most judges that come in here are practitioners from their area. So they've had to unlearn what they have learned for so many years. So my question is with regards to this specific paradigm that we're operating in, where most businesses are going to be run by people who are sort of set in their ways of, deciding to deal with disputes through litigation, say, as opposed to us or me specifically. When I move into dispute resolution, I will possibly look at it as mediation first. So does that gap into you to be widening, or how can we bridge that gap?
Okay, I think in defense of people that are set in their ways, you need to understand that, AD, people would always continue to do the best with what they can. If they knew better, they would do better. Now, when I started off as an active litigator, I didn't know any better until I accidentally stumbled upon mediation. So when I see people that are still set on their ways in terms of them saying, "Oh, it has to be litigation or no other way," I'm a bit empathetic. I'm not resistant to it. I try to make them understand, which is why I try to explain that every mediator is a trainer because you have to explain the process to them. They need to understand that, look, this now, yes, that usually, let me tell you what I tell them. I tell them, okay, yeah, litigation is a fantastic idea. Yeah, I agree with you. We can't do litigation, but can we explore mediation? And the question is, I ask them, what do you really have to lose? If you're going to go to court, you're going to be in court for maybe 6, 7 months. If we give this process a try, in another 1 week, we should be done. So a lot of times, it has to do with how you explain it to them and try to make them be part of that process. And I think that is where some mediators get it wrong, because first of all, we need to understand that the lawyers were first of all briefed by the clients. So if at some point in time they find themselves in a room with you, don't make them feel as if they're not part of the process. Carry them along in that process. Ask for their opinion. So it's more of emotional intelligence, if you ask me, than any other thing. And I think it's also more of also trying to unlearn and relearn than to actually learn, if you ask me. That's the way I see it. Because the ultimate aim, that's the funny thing, litigation, arbitration, mediation, conciliation, they're all different modes of dispute resolution. The aim really is to resolve disputes. So I try not to make them feel as if one avenue is better than the other avenue. So that's just it. Just explain, just be a bit more empathetic, explain the process to them, understand where they are coming from, and hey, you have it sorted out. Yeah.
Thanks.
Fola,
You're most welcome.
there is a question in the chat, and this is my question as a unique one. How can a young lawyer who is in the service of a full-service corporate law firm in Nigeria? I would love to know, how can I combine my service as an associate in training and my passion for mediation?
You start off from where you are to get to where you want to go to. Now, usually is what I advise people who are still in-house. I tell them, of course, you start off with the organization you're working. Try to make them when when issues abound, try to explain to them the possibility of trying to have this issue resolved amicably. If the word mediation seems too big or too complex, you can just use the word amicable resolution. Because sometimes when you use the word mediation to some people, they think it's just some big fancy word. So depending on who I'm speaking with, I just don't bandy the word mediation around. So first of all, try to explain to them within the organization you work with that, look, I think mediation can be an avenue of trying to resolve disputes. While you're doing that, you have your friends and family that you can also try to teach on the principles of mediation. Now, you don't even need to speak to them you don't need to speak to each and every one of them. Everybody is online. Most phones have WhatsApp. It could be via what you post on your status. It could be you sending a broadcast. So it's always better you start from where you are, have an understanding of what type of mediation you really want to do, whether you want to be a mediator, be a mediation advocate. You understand? Just start from where you are, then take it up slowly and gradually. And there you have it. And there you have it. And that's it.
There is another, we take one question from the chat and then one other question that somebody wants to ask like this. The next question in the chat is talking about setting up. Are there recommended materials on mediation? Do you have a recommendation there?
Okay. I'm going to be very honest with you. I think this is where people need to, first of all, understand how the business of mediation is. The business of, when it comes to the business of mediation, it's just like setting up any regular business. What you just need to do is just reverse engineer some of the concepts you have. I'll just take up around. If you want to set up any business, first of all, you need a website. So same thing too, you need a website for mediation. Now, when you have a website for mediation, now you also need to understand that the mediation is not a product, it's a service. So because it's a service, people don't see it. There's a level of abstraction ascribed to it. So you understand for sure that the mediation is in the service industry where because you're delivering a service to someone. So first of all, you need to have an understanding of what mediation is as a service. You need to be competent in mediation. You have a website. You disseminate information on mediation for people to know that you are an authority in mediation. Then, and naturally, when you talk about something over and over and over again, there's a presumption that you are a specialist in that area. And this is why I cannot overemphasize how important technology is in the scheme of things. So that's, you understand, because by the time you talk about it long enough, you leave what's called digital footprint online, where if anybody needs to talk about mediation in Germany, or just probably type your name and it comes out. It could be from the blogs you sent and all of that. And that's it. So if you ask for materials on mediation, on business of mediation, I would rather recommend you read materials on general businesses. Then when you do, some of the teachings you have there, you now bring it home. You bring it to your own area. Like if I'm going to talk about mediation, the business of mediation in Nigeria, it's radically different from how I'm going to explain mediation in Germany, because you cannot also extricate the concept of culture from the scheme of things. Now, you can't talk about mediation without talking about cultural intelligence. Now, Andrea, I'm having a conversation with you right now. I have some of my older mediators as friends. I have Vikram. Vikram is older than me. In Nigeria, I can't call Vikram by name. I can't call Vikram by name. I'll have to call Vikram Mr. Vikram. I'm going to have to probably use a sir for Vikram. You understand? So then the point I'm just trying to bring out of all of this is that, you see, when we talk about the concept of business, it has to be more or less within the area in which you want to practice that business in. You understand? So that also has to do with the issue of cultural intelligence. Be aware of what is in play in your own area and try to adapt to it. So whatever it is I'm teaching right now might not exactly work on a global scale, but the most important thing that you already have an idea of what it is. You need to have a website, you need to have this, you need to have that, you need to have this. Then you now reverse engineer some of it to suit whatever it is you want to do. So that's it.
And there is there a question that you want to ask face to face? Someone who wants to? No, then I read another question from the chat, a very interesting one about the billing. As a mediator, at what point do you inform the parties about your fees? Is the question.
From the beginning. From the beginning. I'm sorry. I informed them right from the start. Now, usually, I involve them right from the start. When parties come, the first thing they need to agree on really has to be the fees, because whatever the fees will be as a mediator, the fees will be shared between both parties. So the fees will be shared between both parties. So when parties have what's called like a pre-mediation session, where we have an idea of what it is we're going to agree, what it is, how the mediation session will be like, we agree on the fees. Then we can also agree on milestones for payment. Really, if you want to charge, okay. In other parts of the world, they charge per hour. Some people do billable. In some places they do milestone payments where you pay X amount when you start. You pay, then you pay the balance. So, like I said, it all boils down to whatever method you find comfortable. Here in Nigeria, we don't really do so much of billables per se. Just agree on a fee. Then you could actually do milestone or depend or decide how it's going to pay. So it's not really cast in stone. You just have to agree on whatever method you want to use.
Any other? Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Vikram.
Vikram.
Hi, Fola.
Hi, Vikram.
Just a follow-up from that question. The fact that the court annex mediation centers, you don't have to pay much. Parties don't have to pay much. So, in terms of Nigerian experience, do people actually have a value for mediation? And the private mediators, what are the issues in terms of fees that are coming up there?
Okay, now with Nigeria, we have the court annexed. So more often than not, your fees are being paid by the multi-door house. Yeah, so the multi-door houses pay your fees. But where it is private, you get to determine what the parties will pay. So yeah, so the way it works is that they also have their own scale of charges. It's dependent on the complexity of the amount in question. So if it's a court referred case, the multi-door house pays your fees. But if it's a private case, the parties pay. So with the multi-door house, they have their own scale of fees that if you sign up to mediate under them, you are bound by the scale of fees, and you have to adhere to it. So that's basically how it works from this end.
Andrea, can I just come in 1 second more? What I was trying to say was that there were some very enthusiastic lawyers who set up a mediation center in their city, and suddenly when the court annex mediation center came up, they had to shut it down because people didn't come there because the fees, obviously there is nothing. I don't know, in Nigeria I think it's about $40 for the entire mediation or something like that.
Okay, and now it's funny. I tend to make a bit more from mediation advocacy than I do from being a mediator. So I actually understand where you're coming from, because you see, the trust element comes into play as a mediator, because if you're going to market your services as a mediator, it's a bit tricky, because if you market to party A, and you want to speak to party B first, there might be an element of, okay, fine, what's going on between party A? But it's a different case entirely if it was actually contained in an agreement between both of them, and they both now decide to reach you to come be their mediator. So it's a different ball game. So the business side of mediation from the mediation advocacy point, it's an easier sell, trust me, than being a mediator. So I think I agree with what you're saying. It's if you want to set up, and this also boils down, Vikram, to what I was trying to explain earlier on about the business of mediation being a standalone as a mediator. If you do that, chances are that you're going to close shop. So you can as well have a mediator. You're going to close shop. I can tell you that for free. So when you're going to have if you're going to set up a practice as a mediator, as a mediation advocate, as a trainer, as a consultant. Like I have an umbrella, I call it like an umbrella of mediation services I render, but they're all under mediation. So it's bespoke. I can be a trainer today, I can be an advocate, be a consultant, be all within the concept. So I agree with you. Like, I think the mistake that was made then was because they just focused on just being mediators alone without branching off to other areas of mediation. So I agree with you. It could happen.
There is another question from Benjamin. Benjamin, do you want to unmute yourself?
Yes. Yes, thank you, Mr. Alade, for your presentation. I think the last part of your presentation addressing my question, especially in Nigeria, because what we have is if you have a mediation office, if you had not explained what you just did now, that was my question. People don't work, parties cannot just walk into your office and say, be our mediator. So it's like, you either be a mediator advocate where somebody chooses you, and then the other party chooses another person, and then maybe then you guys will not have to meet and things like that. Because I see it happening all the time that very rarely do you have parties working to you, for you to then mediate on their behalf. Just like you said, it is going to be difficult for you to say, oh, let me have a private session with you, let me have a private session with the other. Then the element of suspicion will fall in place. But it's easy to be a mediator advocate, then you know that you are standing for one, and then another person standing for another. I mean, that is where, because if you had not explained what you did just now, although you don't have a website to say that you're doing everything, but then unless we have court-referred cases, and then they now choose you as the mediator for the two, then it's easier. But because I mean, from the practice that I do right now, it's very difficult for people to just walk up to you. I don't know what your experience is like in that area, but I rarely really find that. Most of the time, I mean, the other parties have their lawyers, and then can they really say, oh, go and meet Mr. B? I mean, that's not happening. So I don't know if
Okay, okay. I understand where Mr. Benjamin is coming from, and
okay.
I'm going to use Nigeria as an example.
Could you, Fola, could you do us a favor and rephrase, because there was a sound issue, so I think not everybody understood right.
Okay, basically what he was trying to ask was on setting up a practice as a sole mediator, having just been a mediator as a practice in mediation, and how practicable and realistic it's going to be. So he was just wanting to so that was just his question, to find out how realistic it is to actually have a practice in mediation. And from experience, I'll tell you how I've been able to handle that. I'm a mediator with practically all the multi-door courthouses in Nigeria. I'm a mediator with apart from all the multi-door courthouses, to all the organizations that mediate as a neutral, because it's not so easy for you to sell your practice as a private mediator to people, because there's always that element, that trust element that comes into play. Because if one party approaches you to be a mediator and you accede to it, and then reaches out to the other party and tells the other party that we have a mediator, the trust element comes into play, and in the sense that, okay, fine, why this mediator and not another mediator? In other clients, what they do is that they present maybe 3 mediators. So in some of the cases I've had to handle, I've been told, I'm usually told that I'm selected amongst the 3 mediators to be used for a case. Then the option of choice would now be amongst the parties. So it's not always an isolated selection of me being a mediator, unless the agreement expressly states that parties need to agree on who a mediator is. So sometimes I find myself giving my profile to the parties for them to have a look at and then getting back to me. But more often than not, the bulk of the cases I have to mediate upon are cases I get from some of the multi-door courthouses and organizations that I'm a neutral in. But as far as the business of mediation is concerned, in terms of revenue inflow and all that, it comes in more as a mediation advocate. And for the benefit of those just hearing that word for the first time, a mediation advocate is a professional that represents his client at mediation. That's who it is. So, because I come from a litigious society, so when clients come to meet me and say to me that there's this case I want to go to court, I feel I have a good case. This is where my mediation skills come into play and ask to go to court to do what exactly? Yes, we might go to court, but can we explore the possibility of trying to resolve this issue amicably? That's where it comes into play as a mediation advocate. Then there are also times when organizations also reach out for trainings on, not necessarily on mediation, that's the funny thing, on dispute resolution, because you see, the philosophy of being a mediator, it's a lifestyle. You see, it's not some kind of toga. The mediation is not some kind of toga that you just put on and you take off whenever you want to take it off. You have to imbibe it as part and parcel of you. So sometimes when organizations reach out and they need me to train them on amicable dispute resolution, so that's what sometimes I call it. Yeah, that's what I do. So what in concept in summary, for people who want to establish a mediation practice, I would advise you establish a mediation practice as a mediator, as a mediation advocate, as a trainer, as a consultant, because they're all under the umbrella of mediation. Now, that's for societies that are just growing up, like Nigeria, like Germany, they're just starting up. But in developed clients like maybe Singapore and maybe Canada and all of that, you can decide to probably now specialize. But where in a growing economy, I would advise you just have your tentacles in everything and just strategically position yourself to know where the windfall comes from. If the windfall comes from being a private mediator, you jump on it. If it's from being a consultant, you jump on it. If from being a trainer, you jump on it. But you have just strategically positioned yourself for whichever windfall it comes from.
Thank you so much. I think we are already like 20 minutes over the planned time. Thank you so much for answering all the questions. I highly recommend to all of you to follow Fola on LinkedIn, Facebook, wherever you can find him, because he shares incredibly interesting topics about mediation, and especially also has a lot of interviews with mediators from all around the world. Thank you, Fola. Thank you, everybody, for being here. I just want to announce quickly our next webinar. That is Tuesday, 15th of June. It's 1 hour earlier than today. And it is Julian Ferguson from Canada, who is going to talk about the ethics of ODR. And in brackets, it's more than Zoom. So about the online dispute resolution, that is what you mentioned as well, Fola, that you think is going to be the future of mediation. I share that vision. And so we're going to have a webinar on this next Tuesday. Make sure that you enroll into that so that you will have the link for it. Thank you very much. And
yes, sorry. Before you go, Andrea, can I just show people what I have on my shirt? See, I'm Superman. So what I have on my shirt is this: I'm an attorney mediator. So what is your superpower? So I like to call myself the super mediator. So that's what you have on my shirt right there.
Let's open up the mics and give a big applause. Thank you.
Well done, bro. Well done. Well done.
Thank you so much. Thank you
so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone. Thank you so much. Bye.
Bye.
Good to see you. Good to hear your voice.
Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you.
So, Fola, how can we get that shot?
I'll let you know, Mr. Dewa. Don't worry. I'll let you know.
Thank you, Fola.
Thank you so much, everyone.
And
Bye. Thank you.
Fola, make sure you have a look into the chat. There is so many nice comments and greetings for you that I haven't read, but
wow.
for you.
Wow, thank you so much. I'm just going to screen munch them. Yes. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Okay. Bye, everybody.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.